Okay, I'm seeing the thumbs up, which means it's time for me to start talking. Good morning, everyone. It is still morning. Yes, it is still morning. Time zones, they're messing with me this week. My name is Laura Hunter. I am a principal program manager inside of Microsoft. I am currently with the Cloud and Enterprise Security engineering team. I'm part of the customer experience team, which kind of way you can think about that is that I serve as sort of a go-between from our engineering teams out to our customers and out to our field, where I come to events like this and I raise awareness about products like the ones we're going to be talking about today, and I go out to customers and actually help them to deploy different products inside of our security suite. And as a part of that process, I learn things about what's working, what's not working, what's good, maybe what sucks, and then I bring that back to engineering and help them, drive their prioritization decisions so that they can go and build a better product. At least that's the general idea. I've been with Microsoft for about 7 years. I actually began working for Microsoft as part of Microsoft's internal IT department. I was in Microsoft's internal identity and access management team. And so you think of Microsoft as a software company and a services company, and we are these things, but Microsoft is also a Fortune 100 with 250,000 employees spread out all across the world, and a bunch of these people really just want to get their jobs done. And so when I first came to Microsoft, a big part of what I did was deploying things like Azure Active Directory for cloud-based identity management, was doing things like helping our internal application teams lift and shift our internal line of business applications from our premise into Azure. And so when we were taking these steps, when we were making this journey, it really became clear and very obvious very quickly that the enterprise mobility world, the cloud world, is a lot more complex than previously stated. The cloud and enterprise world is a lot more complex than the world that many of us grew up in an IT capacity of on-prem servers with, very well built out border defenses and border firewalls and access to corporate resources relied on secure prem. Well, guess what? We're in a cloud world now. These things don't apply anymore. I'm not going to spend any more time on this slide than I have to, because I swear you've probably heard it every single session, and this is Friday. So we're just going to keep on going. Cloud momentum continues to accelerate. We know this. The conversation anymore is not should we go to the cloud, it's when are we going to the cloud? How do we optimize the investments we've already made in the cloud? By 2020, we're not even going to be talking about public versus private clouds anymore. This is just going to be the way that we do business. The thing that's interesting to me about this, and again, I'll go back to my roots as Microsoft's IT person. When I was in the identity and access management team inside of Microsoft IT, the identity and access team was orged within information security. We reported to Microsoft's internal chief information security officer. And at the time, when we had Microsoft engineering groups, the Azure group, the Office 365 group, coming to Microsoft IT saying, we need to deploy this stuff internally because we have to be able to say that we're using our own stuff. I was a bit of a curmudgeon, because that was my role. It was my role to play the part of the cynical IT person saying, yeah, I hear you with this cloud stuff, but no, I had all this visibility on-prem, I had all these controls on-prem, and now you're taking them away from me. It was kind of my role to be the internal curmudgeon. But as I've been living in this space for several years now, I'm coming to this realization that as security professionals, especially as the cloud industry and especially as things like software as a service have continued to grow and have continued to evolve, if we hold that extensively and that hard to the security line as a blocker to cloud adoption, we are doing so in a completely well-intentioned way, and we may actually be shooting ourselves in the foot. We may actually be doing our organizations a net disservice. Stay with me, here's what I mean by that. when we have these conversations about security and visibility and policy as being blockers to cloud adoption. We are completely well-intentioned as security professionals. We want our organizations to be secure. It's what we are chartered to do. The challenge is that, especially as viral adoption of cloud services has evolved, as things like bring your own IT services and virally adopted software as a service applications have come into play, if we put too many blockers in front of our users and our employees in the name of security, they're just going to go around us. They're just going to go out to that third-party SaaS service that you've never heard of, or they're just going to go out to that cloud provider and they're going to pull out their credit card and they're going to swipe their card, and all of a sudden your corporate data, which is the thing you wanted to protect to begin with, which is why you were being the curmudgeon to begin with, is now sitting off in some cloud platform that you have no visibility over and no control over and no ability to reason over or to apply policy over. And so I think as security professionals in a cloud services world, we do need to think about these evolving challenges to cloud security because they do exist. They are absolutely real. The management of cloud resources is incredibly distributed. You used to just think about your on-prem Active Directory domain admins, and it was this group that you could count on one hand. But now you have who is administering your Office 365, who are your different delegated groups inside of O365, your SharePoint admins, your Exchange admins, your help desk admins who just have the ability to do password resets. Who's your Salesforce admin? Probably not someone in your IT department. It's probably someone in HR or someone in sales. Who are the people who have administrative rights inside of all of these different cloud services that you're adopting? These challenges are real. These challenges are absolutely in front of us. Cloud environments are extremely dynamic. You can light up a new cloud service by swiping a credit card. Sometimes you don't even need to swipe a credit card because they all have free offers. You just go out to the website, punch in your email address, and poof, you've got a presence in a SaaS provider you've never heard of. If you are in a cloud service provider like Azure, like Amazon, and you're using infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, how easy is it to spin up a VM or to spin down a VM relative to how hard it usually was to get a new server provisioned in an on-prem data center? Think about your on-prem change control boards, getting a new server provisioned. There was the form, and there was the governance meeting, and there was the pushback of, sorry, we don't have any more physical footprint in the data center. You don't have to worry about that anymore. You click the button and you've got a new VM. Is it patched? Is it monitored? Is it configured correctly? Very dynamic environments. And so as a security profession, as security professionals, as a security industry, part of the approach and part of the response to this new world of cloud and this new world of mobile is to very much think about not just protection, which is what we always thought about in the on-prem world. We had our massive $500,000 border firewall, and no one's getting through that thing until people started sending viruses via email. But we won't talk about that. We now have to sort of think about the idea that protection is important, and protection is still completely important and completely valuable. But because of the breadth and the complexity of our end-to-end cloud environments, we actually need to think about the idea that the bad guys only have to be lucky once, and we have to be good all the time. And so inside of Microsoft, inside of our different security practices inside of Microsoft, we have actually transitioned our thinking and transitioned our approach to security services to, yes, we still think about protection, and yes, we still advocate protection, but what we really talk about is assume breach. Assume that someone's gotten in. There's a very famous quote from I think the FBI director several years ago where he made the comment that there are two types of companies in the world: those who know they've been breached and those that have been breached and don't know it yet. I think that was correct when he said it. I would update it for modern times to be there are two types of companies in the world: those that know what to do about the fact that they've been breached and those who don't. I think everyone knows they've been breached at this point. It's just a question of whether you are taking steps to do something about it, or whether you're just sticking your head in the sand and hoping that nothing bad happens. And so this whole security circle of life between protect, detect, respond, this is the approach that we're taking, not just for cloud services, also for on-premises services. In this hour, we're going to be talking a lot about securing Microsoft Azure, securing Azure as a cloud platform. If you want to come back after lunch, I'm going to be delivering a session around Microsoft's Advanced Threat Analytics, which is a moral equivalent to what we're going to be talking about in this hour, but it's going to be much more geared towards applying that same protect, detect, respond cycle to your on-premises resources, specifically to your on-premises Active Directory and your on-premises identity stores, which for many of us are still the authoritative source of truth for our identity systems. But back to Azure, because that's what we're talking about for this hour. So when we think about Azure as a cloud platform and as a cloud service provider, when we think about how Microsoft secures Azure as a platform, we have kind of a three-tiered approach to this. We think about the platform, we think about data intelligence, we think about our partners. Take those one at a time. Thinking about our platform, we want to build the most secure platform possible. Did you imagine I was going to say anything other than that? This is kind of table stakes. If we're not doing this, why are we here? Move on to the other two, intelligence and partners. So when we think about data intelligence, I'm sure that many of you have seen, you may have even been in my discussion yesterday about cloud app security. We don't just need to secure the platform today, we need to be able to respond to emerging threats that are coming tomorrow. And a big part of this is our investments that we've made in the Microsoft Intelligent Security Graph. Anytime you hear the phrase Microsoft Intelligent Security Graph, it's a really good way for marketing to describe the fact that we're a really big service provider and we have a lot of security signals coming into us. We have a lot of data coming into us from a lot of sources, and we use that data and we use that intelligence that's coming into us to build better products for ourselves, so to better secure Azure as a platform, but also to provide that intelligence to be able to allow you to secure yourselves better. So we get signals coming in from Azure as a platform, hundreds of thousands of VMs running inside of Azure IaaS every day. And as a cloud service provider, part of what we do is we do threat monitoring and we do telemetry against those servers and against those VMs running in Azure IaaS. Big old security signal coming in, lots of data coming in. We have security signals coming in from Office 365, massive online collaboration tool, hundreds of thousands of millions of customers, lots of security data coming in, lots of information about spam bot networks that comes in from Office 365, lots of data that we have coming in from Microsoft Account, formerly Windows Live, one of the biggest consumer identity providers in the world. Again, lots of information about spam bots, about botnets, about dark web IP addresses. We get information from our digital crimes unit, from the Microsoft Security Research Center, which is the organization inside of Microsoft that monitors things like Azure and things like O365, and they're the ones who call our customers when, say, you've got a command and control network running inside of your Azure network, and it is starting to attack other people on the internet. And so as a part of being a good citizen of this massive interconnected world that we live in, we are going to provide that intelligence to you to help you remediate not only yourselves, but those other unsuspecting people that you're attacking and don't even know you're doing it. And so again, Microsoft Intelligent Security Graph, lots of signals coming in, and we want to use that intelligence that is churning every day and evolving every day to be able to build a better product. If we learn about the presence of a new botnet, we want to be able to take that intelligence and incorporate it into advanced threat protection that you're running on your endpoints. If we get information about a new zero-day, a new piece of malware, and we get that signal from one of our customers running inside of Azure, hey, they've got this infection we've never seen before. We don't just want to fix that one customer. We want to look at whatever situation was in place there and ask ourselves two questions. What did we learn, and how can we help? And so that's the data intelligence portion of our approach to securing Azure. Third pillar is partners. Microsoft is not going to be your only vendor in the cloud. It takes a lot of corporate humility to be able to say that, but we know it's true. And so we've spent a lot of time, we've made a lot of investments around building up partnerships with different ISVs, with different vendors, with different partners who can take the platform layer security that Microsoft provides and augment over top of that to be able to give you a choice. Maybe you like this one better than that one. Maybe you got a better price from this one better than that one, and you want to be able to use the one that you choose to use. Well, we want to be able to allow you to make that choice, to have that choice, and to be able to integrate that partner solution into your holistic security story. And so, yeah, when we think about the platform, how we built the platform, you know, we architect Azure. We architect Azure for multi-tenant, multi-scale, multi-massive scale. You know, we have continuous monitoring, continuous detection, and again, we use that intelligence and apply that not just to the individual customer facing the threat, but we apply that to the platform as a whole. Partners, we have 3,500 plus partner solutions that are available inside of the Azure Marketplace that you can just go in through the Azure Marketplace and, you know, click your credit card or punch in your purchase order or however it is that your organization handles its finances, and all of a sudden you can now immediately and probably with one click deploy a new endpoint solution, a new vulnerability scanner, things like that. This is kind of our approach. There is more to it than just securing the platform, though. So when you talk about cloud security, when you talk about cloud adoption, and when you talk about securing cloud adoption, there's a part of the equation that your cloud service provider is responsible for. You expect Azure to have a secure cloud platform, but there's also a portion of the equation that you, the customer, are responsible for. It's a shared responsibility. I give you the most secure platform I possibly can. You take that platform and you start building applications. You start standing up VMs. It is then your responsibility to configure and to secure your environment and your assets as securely as you can. But it's also my responsibility to give you the tools to help you do that better. So it becomes this sort of circular, again, security circle of life thing. And so when we secure the platform, we think about security and transparency and compliance. And then we also build tools to allow you, as the users of that platform, to do encryption and secure networking and securing your identities. We've also provided, this is a new tool, this is a new service that just went GA, just went into general availability at Ignite this year, which is called Azure Security Center. And I am going to blow through the rest of these slides as quickly as I humanly can, because what I really want to do is to be able to show you this new offering, because death by PowerPoint is terrible. So I'm just gonna blow through some slides and get to the fun part. We build the platform. We built the platform to be very secure. Obviously, we want to be able to do this. Our data center security and our network protection and our data encryption, we take this very seriously. You would sort of be surprised if we did not. But it was interesting to me, for example, when I was inside of Microsoft IT, I was a domain admin in Microsoft's on-prem Active Directory environments. I had like 19 different smart cards, and I had the blue badge that had the red lettering on it that meant that I could gain access to Microsoft data centers, because I sometimes had to go into a data center to kick a server that had tipped over. In Tukwila, Washington, which is down by the SeaTac airport, which is where one of our major data centers was. It was actually kind of cool. You would drive down to Tukwila, and on the left-hand side of the road was the Microsoft IT data center. So the data center that housed the servers belonging to Microsoft, the Fortune 100 company. On the right-hand side of the road was the Azure data center. So housing these servers belonging to Microsoft, the cloud service provider. Guess which door my card wouldn't let me into? The one on the right. I couldn't get into the Azure Data Center. They wouldn't let me do that because even inside of Microsoft, the relationship between Microsoft as a customer and Microsoft as a cloud service provider is one that we take very seriously. It happens to be the case that my cloud service provider and my collaboration tools and my sales and marketing tools are owned by a cloud service provider that I own, but they are still my vendor from a relationship and from a contractual standpoint. If Azure or if Office 365 has some sort of a breach, has some sort of customer impacting event, my CISO gets a copy of the disclosure, the same disclosure that any one of you in this room would get. He'll probably also get a phone call from the head of O365 because they play golf together, but that's just sort of like that's like an added perk. You know, we still take very seriously this idea that Azure as a service provider needs to provide this level of data center security, this level of operational security, and all of the operation security assurance that we want to be able to provide that to all of our customers, including Microsoft as a customer. Other things we want to provide for you. We want to provide control over your data location. We have Azure data centers. We have Azure data centers all over the globe. To the extent possible, we want to provide you the ability to house your data where you want it to be housed. We have, and I want to read this because I'm not a lawyer, so I want to be sure I'm getting this right. So Brad Smith, who is the head of Microsoft Legal, he recently announced that Microsoft's cloud contracts have been validated by the European Union data protection authorities as meeting the privacy standards that regulate companies that are operating in EU member states. This was not easy. This took rather a long time to do. And so these are the sorts of contractual commitments and the data access commitments that we want to be able to provide for you, regardless of where your company is doing business. Wanted to read that directly from my notes because I'm not a lawyer. Don't even strive to be one. We want to give you transparency to help make you informed decisions. I just mentioned, Brett Arsenault, Microsoft CISO, will get the copy of the same audit reports that you do. He'll just also happen to get a phone call from, Brad Smith or somebody. We provide the Microsoft Trust Center, the security information site, and this is a central clearinghouse, a central repository of not only information about Azure, the platform, but also information for you as customers to be able to configure your environments in the most secure fashion. Again, with that two sides of the coin, mutual security agreement. These are the things that we want to provide for you as your service provider. We want to provide you with that base level of security, and we want to provide you with the tools that get you secure the rest of the way. Compliance, alphabet soup. There's a lot of acronyms up there. Trust me, there's a lot of acronyms up there. You want an acronym? We probably have it. If we don't have it, we're probably working on it. So, kind of talked about the platform, how we want the platform to be made secure. Now let's talk about ways that we allow you as customers to secure your resources. Kind of big pillars here that this shouldn't be new, really, even if you are very early in your cloud adoption story, because these are the same solutions that you already think about or that you already thought about in your on-prem server deployments and in your on-prem security posture. We are just now taking those same tenets, those same concepts, and applying them to services running in the cloud. Azure, and so we give you, for example, ways to control access to your Azure environments. This is something that we've done a lot of investment on, especially over the last couple of years. Give you just a little Microsoft IT war story. When we first started deploying Azure, and they hadn't made these investments yet, the number of times I had the same conversation over and over and over again which was an engineering group would come to me and say, I built this cloud service, and I want you to use it, and I want MSIT to use it so that you guys can give me early feedback and early dog food. And the first question out of my mouth was, great, what security does the admin of this service need to have in order to run this service? They need to be global admins on the subscription. Yeah, go away and try again. Come back to me when you're done. Thankfully, this is no longer the case. I feel I can take a little bit of credit that I have pounded that into people's heads over the years. And so when you think about running services inside of Azure, we want to give you the ability to, we've given you the ability to do role-based access control. We have certain roles that are built into the Azure platform, where we've also given you the ability to define new roles that meet your needs in terms of granular authorizations inside of Azure. We've also introduced the ability to do just-in-time administration. So I don't need to walk around being the Azure equivalent of a domain admin. I don't need to walk around 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, being a global admin inside of Azure Active Directory. I can instead go to a portal, go to the Azure portal, fill out my little request, maybe it pops a workflow that my manager needs to approve it. And at that point, I am then granted admin rights into Azure for an hour, for 8 hours, for however long. We make this configurable. We want this to be configurable because different positions inside of your organization are going to have different requirements. As what amounted to a tier 4 admin or a tier 4 escalation inside of MSIT, I think I figured out that I needed to be a domain admin 15 minutes a month. And so for me, it made a lot of sense for there to be this portal that I had to go to, and I had to fill out the form, and I had to wait for my manager to click approve and then come back so that I could then go and do my thing. Like, that made total sense. We have data center operators, the guys on the right-hand side of the road, who walk in every day and they have a queue of several hundred tickets that they have to close in terms of, recycle this VM, do this thing, do this other thing, kick off this other job. And they are paid, and they are, their end-of-year bonuses and their end-of-year performance reviews depend on how many tickets can they close in a day. If I stick a 10-minute delay in front of every operation that they have to perform, I wouldn't be standing on the stage because I would be dead, because they would have killed me by now. And so we want to give you the ability to create different workflows for different use cases. In the case of the data center operator, maybe he comes in at the beginning of the day and fills out a one-time request that is good for the rest of his 8-hour shift. And we want to give you a way to revocate if you have to fire him in the middle of his shift, because we're still security people. We still think about these things. Azure Active Directory. Azure Active Directory is the solution for corporate comprehensive identity management inside of Azure, and this is something that we've been investing in for so long. Azure Active Directory has existed for longer than it had a name. And what I mean by that is the identity backbone for things like Office 365 we're already using the architectural and the security underpinnings of Azure Active Directory before we went and named it Azure Active Directory, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago by now. But really the idea of Azure Active Directory is that it is the cloud equivalent for your on-prem data stores. It is the cloud equivalent of your on-premises Active Directory. It gives you the ability to centrally manage your users and access to Azure, to Office 365, also to third-party applications. We want you to be able to use your Azure identity to be able to access things like Salesforce, things like Box, things like Dropbox. We want to be able to reduce the number of distinct usernames and passwords that your users need to remember. Number one, it creates a better experience for them because they don't have to do the proverbial sticky note under the keyboard. And number two, it creates a better security experience because if someone leaves the organization and I terminate their Azure Active Directory credentials, I've terminated access to everything within reason, everything that they have access to. I don't have to go to this portal to turn off Office 365, and this portal to turn off Salesforce, and this portal to turn off the other thing. So being able to have that kind of centralized identity repository creates not only an improved security experience, but also an improved productivity experience. And those are the kinds of things that make me happy. We enable encryption for data at rest. We have many options. Please choose one. Please choose multiple. So for your data drives, we offer BitLocker for, excuse me, we offer BitLocker encryption of your drives to import and export your data. We offer encryption for our crypto APIs. We have for RMS, we have RMS, Azure Information Protection. We have an SDK that allows you to programmatically protect documents, to classify documents, so that you can create and so that you can integrate things like document protection into your existing automated processes. You don't have to sit and click a knob on a website. Data in transit, fairly straightforward. We use HTTPS, we use SSL. We offer support for this across all of Azure. You know, this is kind of table stakes. If we didn't do this, why would I be on? That would be kind of silly. Why would I be on stage? Azure Key Vault. This is something new. This is something new that we've recently developed, which is an ability for Azure to essentially act as your HSM in the cloud, to act as your key management in the cloud, to be able to provide you with the ability to safeguard your crypto keys, your crypto secrets within your cloud environment, and allow you to be able to allow your developers, for example, to interact with those secrets where they need to without actually having direct access to them. So this is very new. This is something that we've been doing a lot of work on recently, and this is something that I'm very excited about from a security perspective. Protecting your virtual machines, protecting your virtual networks. We give you, again, these are very analogous tools to things that you would have applied to your server environments on-prem. We offer you host firewalls and antivirus for your machines in Azure. We offer you the ability to do things like VPNs, ExpressRoute that allows you to create a secure tunnel if you have a hybrid environment where you have resources in Azure IaaS, but that also need to communicate back to your resources on-prem. We offer you all of these abilities. Trusted solutions, trusted partners. We got lots of them. And we want you to be able to use them, you know, in the way that makes most sense to you, both from a usability standpoint, from a security standpoint, you know, from a financial standpoint. This is the sort of whirlwind overview of everything that we do from a cloud service provider standpoint. These are the things that we want to do, not only to provide you with a secure platform, but to give you the tools that you need to be able to secure your portion of the cloud story. And on that note, Azure Security Center. This is a specific tool that we offer as part of the Azure platform. And again, this is something that came to general availability at Ignite this year, and so I'm very excited to be able to show this to you today. This is something that is built into Azure as a platform, and it gives you the ability to address the visibility and policy issues that tend to plague security people as we talk about moving to the cloud. This addresses all of those problems that make us be the curmudgeons in the room saying, but if you put your stuff in the cloud, I don't have audit logs, and I can't apply policies, and I don't have visibility into what's going on in my cloud infrastructure the way that I did in my on-prem infrastructure. Azure Security Center has been expressly built and very specifically built to allow you to address that sort of issue. Now, for those of you who were in my discussion yesterday about Microsoft Cloud App Security, you might be seeing some similarities here. So Cloud App Security, for those of you who weren't there, is a service provided in the Microsoft Cloud that allows you to gain visibility and to apply policy and to do reporting about your employees' usage of third-party SaaS applications. So things like Salesforce, things like Box, things like Dropbox. Cloud App Security is intended to give you that CISO desired visibility and policy setting into your SaaS investments. Azure Security Center is designed to solve those same problems, of visibility, of policy setting, and is designed to allow you to solve these problems inside of your Azure IaaS and your Azure PaaS investments. I'll show you what that looks like in just 1 second. So things that Azure Security Center does for you. It gives you a unified view of the current security posture of all of your Azure subscriptions, of all of the resources inside of your Azure subscriptions. It allows you to create security policies that you can apply across your Azure subscriptions. It allows you to be notified of changes to your security posture. So we talked about the fluidity of Azure of any cloud environment where VMs can be spun up and VMs can be spun down, and maybe you have a VM that accidentally got spun up from an out-of-date image and now it's missing a critical patch. Azure Security Center will detect that and will provide you visibility to the fact that you have a machine that is out of sync, that is out of compliance. It also allows you to automatically remediate a number of issues. So for example, if you have VMs sitting in Azure IaaS where you find one that is missing endpoint protection. Endpoint protection is part of your standard VM image. One managed to slip through the cracks and get deployed without it. Azure Security Center will not only notify you about the issue, but will also allow you to centrally remediate and deploy endpoint protection to this out-of-compliance machine. And I'm about to show you a bunch of slides that are screenshots of the portal. So I'm going to stop doing slides and just show you the portal. So give me just 1 second to change up my screen. Because really, given the choice between showing you slides of a thing and showing you the thing, I'd much rather show you the thing. Yes, things are good. So this is the Azure portal. This is actually, let's start from the very beginning. Oh, you cannot see. You can see a blue screen. Well, let's fix that then, shall we? I said to duplicate. Why didn't you duplicate? There you go. That's what I wanted. Thank you, technology. And thank you for letting me know that rather than me just sitting here talking and everyone in the room going, does she know that she's not projecting anything? So this is the Azure portal. Just the homepage of the Azure portal. You've probably all seen this. And within the Azure portal, you will now see on the left-hand blade. You can also pin it to the start screen. You now see this icon that reads Security Center. And when you fire up the Azure Security Center, the main page of Azure Security Center provides you with sort of a quick hit overview of a couple of different aspects of the security posture of your environment. And I'm going to go through all of these in turn. But I do want to, from a service standpoint, from a pricing standpoint, I do want to just sort of give you an overview of Azure Security Center as a service. So ASE as a service is not currently built into any EMS offerings, the way that, for example, CAS is built into EMS E5. Azure Security Center is a separate standalone offering today from a pricing perspective. There are portions of Azure Security Center that come for free with every Azure subscription. You do need to turn it on because there is a data collection component required. There is a requirement that we push a lightweight agent out to your Azure VMs. And so you do need to turn on Azure Security Center inside of your subscriptions, but there is a free component of ASC that is built into every single Azure subscription. No reason not to turn it on from the security person inside of me. And when you look at this main screen, kind of the best way to think about what is free and what is not in terms of the ASC offering is everything that you see on this top half of the screen. So you see the section up here that reads, you see two sections. You see the section that reads prevention and the section that reads detection. Everything that shows up in the prevention section is part of the free offering. And the best way to conceptualize the prevention section is this is the portion of ASC where we are providing you with reporting and with best practice recommendations around static configuration elements of your Azure resources. What I mean by that is configuration information about how your VMs are configured. Are you up to date in terms of system updates? Do you have endpoint protection installed? Do you have anti-malware installed? From a networking standpoint, are all of your VMs part of a network security group? So these are the sorts of recommendations and the sorts of alerts that you will see inside of the prevention section. What you will see inside of the detection section, which is the paid portion of the ASC offer, the detection section is what will show you real-time inbound and outbound traffic and threats that are taking place against your Azure environment. So this is where you're going to see things like evidence of RDP brute force attacks, evidence of SQL injection attacks. So this is the sort of thing that will, the detection section is what's going to show you the ongoing traffic and ongoing threats against your Azure subscription, against your Azure environment. And again, just sort of as a little plug, if you come back after lunch and stay for my session about advanced threat analytics, the sorts of detections that you're going to see inside of Azure Security Center that apply to your Azure IaaS and your Azure PaaS environments, you're going to see something very similar looking inside of ATA, inside of advanced threat analytics for your on-prem Active Directory. You're going to see a lot of moral equivalencies here. So let's start with the free stuff, because really there's no reason not to turn it on. So when we start at this top section, we see just sort of a quick overview of this. Just sort of gives me, between my virtual machines, between my networking, between my SQL and my data, between my applications, that being my web roles, my worker roles, it just gives me a quick overview of security recommendations based on the current state of each of these components, of each of these pieces of the environment. And these recommendations are based on Microsoft baselines, so the sorts of things that are published in the Trust Center and as part of our security baselines. So this is a demo environment. I have a lot of red. So let's sort of go node by node. So if I click into my virtual machines section, the navigation here is pretty much identical to any other node inside of the Azure portal. You click on something, something flies out. You want to go back to the thing before. You close the thing that just flew out. And so if I look at my virtual machine security health, I see two different views. I see a roll-up view of my entire environment. If my mouse will work with me, or I'll just use my hand. There we go. So I see a roll-up of every VM in my environment, followed by a detail of each individual VM. So I'm going to read some of these out to you because I recognize folks in the back might not be able to see. So what I'm seeing as part of this roll-up recommendation section, endpoint protection not installed, 2 out of 7 VMs. This shows up red because we consider this a high criticality miss in terms of your system configuration. Missing system updates, 1 out of 7 VMs. Missing disk encryption, 5 out of 7 VMs. Vulnerabilities found. I have 2 out of 7 VMs that are currently showing active vulnerabilities. And so again, this gives you just sort of a quick hit roll up of what is the current state of your environment. My friend in the front row, who's a bit of a plant, because he's deployed Azure Security Center inside of his environment. When his operations guys come to him and say, great, what are security's requirements for this new thing we're deploying in Azure? I'm totally stealing this phrase that you gave me at the Ask the Experts last night. His response is, get Azure Security Center to green. That's all I want. Totally stealing that. You were like my best friend. So this gives you the, that sort of roll-up view. You then can also see an individual view of each of your VMs. So I can see I have VM4, which is showing as red. I can see that it's monitored, so that's green. I can see it's missing system updates, so that's red. I'm seeing it has endpoint protection configured, so I get a green check mark there. I'm seeing it's got some vulnerability showing, and it's seeing that it's missing disk encryption. So, at this point, because I have one red, the entire VM shows up as red. And so this gives me, on a VM by VM basis, system health, current state, and system health recommendations for my Azure IaaS VMs. I also get similar set of recommendations around my web roles and my worker roles inside of Azure PaaS. And so in this case, I'm showing my web role and my worker role are both showing their OS versions out of date. So they're both showing red under my CS Demo 2 web application. And under CS Demo 1, I'm showing my web role and my worker role are both green, which would make my friend in the second row very happy. So that's one example. Let's go down to networking. And you're going to see a very similar view, so a very similar presentation of data, but in this case pivoted around what is the current security state of your networking configuration inside of Azure. Do you have next-gen firewalls installed? Do you have NSGs that may or may not be enabled? Do you have, what is your list of intranet-facing endpoints? I think this little piece here, this little section right here, is my favorite part of Azure Security Center, because this shows me at a single glance, here is every VM that you have inside of your Azure subscription that has ports that are open to the internet. What's the IP address? Is it part of a network security group? And does it have a next-gen firewall running? You can see I'm a bad admin. Really what you can see is that this is a demo environment. And so you can see that for your Azure VMs. If you also scroll a little bit further down, you also get a pictorial view of your current networking topology. You can see VNet 3, you can see VNet 1, and again, running all the way down the line, you can see a quick hit view of, do we consider this network topology to be healthy? Yes or no? And so, all of this is part of the prevention section. All of this, again, comes for free inside of your Azure subscription once you turn it on. We also have integration with partner solutions. So we have a number of partner solutions that are directly integrated into Azure Security Center. So to give you an example, if I go back to my virtual machine section and I see 2 of my 7 VMs do not have endpoint protection installed, if I drill into that one further, I can see that I have VM1 and VM3 do not have endpoint protection installed. I have the option directly inside of ASC to install endpoint protection on those 2 VMs. And again, because we want to make these investments in partner integration, you have the ability to select, do I want to deploy the Microsoft anti-malware, or do I want to deploy the Trend Micro Deep Security Agent? The current set of partner solutions that is integrated into ASC, I'm going to be completely transparent, is smaller than I would like it to be because we just went GA. But this is something that we are actively working on. We are actively working on improving, actively working on adding to that list. For example, we very recently added support for the Qualys vulnerability scanner. Another thing that we're going to be working on over the next several months is there are a number of partner solutions that are in the Azure Marketplace today, but Azure Security Center doesn't see them. And this is very simply a point-in-time engineering problem where, because Azure Security Center came along later, we have to go back and do some wiring. So it may be the case, like if you turn this on in your subscription today, you may see an alert that says you don't have endpoint protection installed. And you're going to say, but yes, I do. It's that thing right over there. Why doesn't ASC see it? I'm just letting you know that that's why that may be the case, that's why it's not seeing it. Because we know we do have some work to do to essentially retrofit some of the existing Azure Marketplace solutions to be ASC aware. But as this list grows and as this list gets better, you can see this gives you just a one-click, very easy way to remediate an issue that we find inside of your subscriptions. Another thing that you get is the ability to set policy, and you can set policy against a subscription or against a resource group, an individual resource group inside of a subscription. By default, any policy that you set at the subscription level is going to inherit down, much like group policies inside of Active Directory, or you can essentially break that inheritance and create a unique policy inside of just one or more resource groups. And so the things that you can configure inside of your policy today. Number one, we need to configure data collection. This is the only policy element that has to be configured at the subscription level, because we need you to tell us where you want us to store the data. And it is one storage account per subscription. We do give you the ability to select which storage account you want us to go to. So if you have multiple subscriptions in multiple geos, you can select a storage account in the same geo as your subscription, so that your audit and your logging data remains geolocal. So that's data collection. That needs to happen at the subscription level. You can configure the pricing tier, and so I mentioned that there is the free version. There's the free pricing tier of ASC. There is then the standard version of ASC, and we'll show off the advanced detection pieces in a moment. There is also for each of your subscriptions, you have the ability to sign up for a 90-day free trial of the advanced detections. So for example, if you just wanted to turn it on, if you turn on the free part and you think you like it and you want to see what the advanced detections do, you can turn that on for 90 days. Purely from an operational, pragmatic sense, I would recommend that you do that when you know you have bodies that can open the portal, see what's going on, and review the outputs that you're getting. Just because it's really hard for me to extend a free trial. So like if you get to the end of the free trial and you forgot, and then you go in on day 91 and you're like, oh, but I wanted to see that, and you call me and you say, Laura, can you extend my free trial? I'm gonna feel really bad, and I'm gonna say no. So just purely operationally, if you're gonna turn on the 90-day trial, just make sure you have someone who, someone in your Azure operations team who knows that you did it and knows to go and look and see what the free trial came up with. You can set the pricing tier at the subscription level. You can also set you can set unique policies at the resource group level. So maybe you just want to apply that additional pricing and that additional monitoring to your internet-facing endpoints or to your production endpoints. You do have that flexibility. So that's the pricing that you can set inside of policy. Email notification. So what this allows you to do for inside of your subscriptions, and again, this can be at the subscription level or at the resource group level, this allows you to configure a security contact email and a security contact phone number. Now, the security contact email will be used to notify you in the event of high priority alerts if you are running the standard tier. I want that to be high and medium. Hopefully that'll be coming soon, but today it's just high. The other thing that this is used for is this is the contact information that Microsoft, that the MSRC will use to contact you in the event that something bad is happening in your subscription and we detected it. And the reason that we provide this for you is because by default, we're going to call the billing contact for the subscription. And as IT people well know, that may or may not be the right person to call in the event of a security incident. And so we give you this ability. And then prevention policy. So this is so basically the policy that you can set today. The policy that you can set today is whether or not you want to show recommendations for these different items that ASC is reporting on today. So for example, system updates, OS vulnerabilities, endpoint protection. You can see. I'm gonna zoom in a second. You can see that little information tab right there. What that means is that in order for ASC to report on these, you need to have that data collection configured. If you don't have data collection configured within the subscription, we don't have anywhere to store baseline and deltas about system updates, OS vulnerabilities. We also allow you to configure, do I want to see alerting on disk encryption, NSGs, WAFs, and next-gen firewalls? Pragmatically, the only reason I'm going to tell you to turn one of these off is if you are experiencing that point in time problem where ASC doesn't see your endpoint protection yet, and you know it, and you don't want ASC to be showing a sea of red. You can, for example, turn off, don't show me alerts about vulnerability assessment. Please remember to go turn it back on when we add your solution to our marketplace. Please go do that for me. So that is the policy section. And so we have now walked through pretty much the entire top portion of the ASC console. So again, this is everything that you get for free as part of ASC. Now, if we skim down to the bottom, so if we go down to the detection section, this is the part that comes with the standard pricing tier. So this is the part that comes as a paid service. Stop IMing me, I'm presenting. Yay, I love having a day job. So if we look at our security alerts, what the detection section shows us and what the detection section gives us for that additional paid pricing is this shows you a view over time of network attacks and of host-based attacks that have taken place against the artifacts and against the resources inside of your Azure subscription. So I can see over time. I have a couple of medium, I have a couple of highs, and I have a couple of lows over time. So this shows me the timeline view. I can also see a detail of each of these, and I have them sorted by severity. You can also sort by date. You can sort by who has detected them. So, for example, if you have the Qualys vulnerability assessment installed, you can sort by just show me the detections that Qualys came up with. Not sure why you want to do that, but you could if you wanted to. And so what you see here, this is sorted by severity, and this is showing you things like potential SQL injection, successful SQL brute force attack, potential SQL injection, suspicious process executed. Obviously, these are all deemed high criticality. The high, medium, low criticality is currently hard-coded based on Microsoft baselines. We've heard requests from a number of customers to be able to customize what is high, what is medium, what is low. I'm going to give you the PM answer that it's in our backlog. Like, we think it's interesting, but I don't know when we're going to be able to do it. So this is what you see today. And if you drill into each of these individual items, RDP brute force attack. So if I double click on this item, it shows me this is the VM that was attacked, this is the severity. If I drill in again, it gives me additional detail. It gives me additional detail about what was detected and about ways to remediate. Another thing that you get, and this is just part of the service, is if you want to have a more detailed report. So if you need to do a readout to your leadership, for example, you can click on this report link, and I pulled one up earlier in the cooking show school of thought, so you didn't have to wait for something to download. And what this gives you is a Microsoft Threat Intelligence report about RDP brute forcing. What is it? What are the details? Why do we think this is important? Gives you some references from Security Week, from TechNet. What are some recommended actions? And you will get this for every alert that is fired by this detection section. I can show you another one here. If we see evidence of suspicious SVC host activities, again, you see a summary, you see a detail, you see how did we identify this? Yes? So the question was, do we have this report available for every recommendation? And for every high criticality one that I can think of, we've done this. It's obviously, it's an evolving piece. What you will see for every event, even the ones that are of perhaps medium or low criticality, you will see this in Portal view that gives you kind of the short version of that. But for every high criticality alert, you're going to see this detailed threat intelligence report. And in the case of the SVC host activity, it gives you very detailed steps of, here are things that we want to do. Here are registry keys we think you should set. You know, things that you can do to better protect yourself against this attack. Because, you know, I'm blowing through this portal here because I know I've got security people in the room, and you see something like SQL injection, you know what that is. You see something like RDP brute force, you know what that is. But sometimes we need to be able to communicate with people outside of our happy little security bubble, and this helps you to be able to do things like that. And so something else I wanted to show you. So you've seen this timeline of events, and you've seen these individual events. One thing that we're particularly proud of is something that we call reporting on security incidents. And so zooming in so you can see the difference. You can see like the SQL injection event has the little shield with the exclamation point, but then you see these two guys here that say security incident detected, and they have this little kind of molecule looking thing next to it. And what a security incident is Azure and is Azure Security Center using all of those signals that we talked about at the top of the hour to be able to look at a number of individual events. So each of these SQL injection, RDP brute force attacks, these were individual events that took place against your subscription. In the case of a security incident, what you are seeing is we have seen a sequence of individual events that indicate that something bad is happening on your network. And if you read up from the bottom, you can see some of these are medium priority events. Some of these are low priority events. You know, if you look at SQL injection attack blocked, we're going to classify that as a low priority event because it was blocked. Your firewall did its job. We're not going to set off someone's pager because a firewall did its job. Unless our combined threat intelligence lets us look at the sum total of these events and be able to aggregate them and be able to draw a high confidence conclusion that there is a security incident taking place on your network based on this sequence of individual events, some of which are high criticality, some of which are low. And so this is something that's really exciting inside of ASC that I'm very happy about. Now, one thing that I get asked a lot, and it's a completely valid question, is, great, you're showing me this portal, and you're showing me this portal that's telling me that stuff is happening. I want to do something about it. More to the point, I want Microsoft to do something about it. Perfectly valid question. So Azure Security Center is a reporting and is a detection algorithm. Is a detection mechanism. It is not itself a system orchestrator. It will not fire off events as a result of the things that it sees, as a result of the things that it shows you inside of these detections. What we do offer are multiple integration points that will allow you to take the intelligence and take the information that comes out of ASC and build it into your existing system, your existing security infrastructures. So for example, if you already have a SIEM in place, if you're already using an HP ArcSight or a Splunk or something like that, and your security operations team is already using that SIEM as their single pane of glass to be able to respond to security incidents, then you have the ability to configure ASC to forward events using log collector software that's freely available on the TechNet site today. You have the ability to configure ASC alerts to feed directly into your SIEM, at which point they just become another feed into your SIEM, and your SecOps team is going to do what your SecOps team does. There is also most, possibly all, but I'm an engineer, so I like precise answers. Most, if not all, of the capabilities inside of the portal today, anything that you can do in the portal, you can do via an API. I'm going to say most because you're going to find the thing we didn't get to, and I don't like lying to my customers. So, for example, if you have an existing system orchestrator, you can use the RESTful APIs to feed this data into your system orchestrator, and your system orchestrator can do what it does. It can fire off a runbook, it can block a port, it can disable an account. Within the Microsoft suite of security offerings, this also feeds into OMS, Operations Management Suite and Security. ASC will forward all of its, can directly integrate the events that it detects as, what does OMS call them? Suspicious activities, interesting activities, too many acronyms. But point being that Azure Security Center can very easily integrate, like no programming involved, will very easily integrate its events into OMS, and OMS is a system orchestrator. That's what it's there to do, and it will fire off the runbook, disable the port, disable the user account. So that's what I wanted to show you today, because I just think that's really cool. And again, I didn't want to show you slides of the thing. I wanted to, show you the thing. So we have a couple of minutes left. I know I'm the last thing before lunch, Gesundheit. So if you have questions, I'm happy to take them now, or I will follow you out to lunch and get food and coffee and stuff. I see a question. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. App service. So the question is, where does app services fit into this? In addition to SQL, Azure, web roles, etc. The short answer today is that they don't. Sadly, we're a cloud service. We release every 3 weeks. Talk to me afterwards. I would love to understand what it is you would like to see, and that's something that I can feed back into my engineering team so that they can figure out what the next things are that they're going to do. It's the nice thing about the cloud world. I don't have to wait 18 months for the next version of software anymore. I can ship every 3 weeks. Anyone else? Yes, sir. I had a question about, you mentioned Azure. I was wondering if you have any information about Lockbox or your own team. Do you know anything about it? Talk to the nice man in the front row, because that's actually handled by his team and not mine. Yay, big organization. You too, go talk after. Thank you for sitting in the front row. Anyone else? All right, thank you very much for your time, and enjoy your lunch.